So let's look at how El Nino floods Kenya. What if I told you that floods in Kenya don't actually start in Kenya? They start in the Pacific Ocean, nearly 15,000 kilometers away. So in the next few minutes, I'll show you how warm water near Peru ends up flooding homes in Nairobi, and why the Indian Ocean and Congo rainforest play a hidden role most people never hear about. So let's begin with something simple. We know that rain, it follows the heat. When ocean water warms up, the air above it heats up. Hot air rises, and rising air forms the clouds. The rising air forms the clouds, and the clouds may make the rain. That's basic physics. Now, El Nino happens when a huge area of the Pacific Ocean near South America becomes warmer than normal. That is, becomes warmer than normal. Normally, strong winds push water towards countries like Indonesia. That leaves cooler water near Peru. But during the El Nino, those winds weaken. So we find that the winds are weakened during the El Nino. So warm water now is flowing back towards South America. So suddenly the ocean near Peru heats up. And when the water heats up, air is also rising and rain is shifting. But here is the key. The atmosphere is connected everywhere. So atmosphere does not have boundaries. Doesn't know there is this country A or country B. It is connected everywhere. Think of the atmosphere like a long rope, very long rope. You push one end or you pull it one end, the other end will move. When air is rising over the Pacific during the El Nino, global wind patterns also, they rearrange themselves. Jet streams, they shift. And also pressure systems are also changing. And Africa usually feels it. Remember we talked about a long rope. So Kenya is not part of El Nino itself, but it feels the consequences. So once the atmosphere shifts, moisture pathways open up. So the moisture pathways, the route the moisture is taking, they opens up. So Kenya starts receiving extra moisture from two major sources. The first is from the Indian Ocean. So that is the warm Indian Ocean, water evaporating more because of the heat. That puts more moisture into the air. And the second is the Congo Basin. You know where Congo is Central Africa, which is covered in rainforest. So these forests are constantly releasing water vapor. They are breathing out water vapor, releasing a lot of, because you know the rainforest is intense and it's also huge area. So it acts like a giant natural humidifier. So during El Nino, winds pull the Congo moisture eastwards, and eastwards is towards where Kenya is. So it comes straight toward Kenya. Now Kenya is being fed from both sides, from Indian Ocean and also from the Congo Basin. So already rainfall is increasing because we have two sources, from the Congo Basin and also from the Indian Ocean. So sometimes the Indian Ocean also changes temperature. So waters near East Africa become warmer, and waters near Indonesia on the other side of the eastern side become cooler. So this is called a positive Indian Ocean Dipole. Think of a seesaw where you are balancing. Africa goes up and Indonesia goes down. Warm water near Kenya means more evaporation, because of course when there is more heat, the evaporation increases. So more evaporation means more moisture, and winds naturally move the moisture inland. So the moisture is in the air, is moved inwards. So now Kenya is getting moisture from Indian Ocean and moisture from the Congo forest. Atmospheric shifts driven by El Nino. So these are an atmospheric shift also driven by El Nino. So we have three sources and one destination, which is Kenya. So El Nino doesn't affect Kenya the same way all year. It's not the whole year. It's usually in the middle of the year. Some regions can even become drier. But toward the end of the year, especially between October and November, that is October, November, December, we used to call it short rains. So rainfall over Equatorial East Africa often increases sharply during the short rains, and most of the El Nino flooding usually occurs October, November, December. So that's why the worst flooding usually happens towards the end of the year. And when El Nino happens together with a positive Indian Ocean Dipole, that's when rainfall becomes extreme. And that's what happened in 1997. Everyone remembers 1997, El Nino was intense. It also happened again in 2019 and again in 2023. So those were years of widespread flooding across Kenya. So we can give an analogy. You imagine Kenya is a cup. You are filling a cup. Remember a cup in your house. Normally one tap, you open a tap slowly. It will fill the cup slowly. But if you are to turn two taps at the same time, so this during El Nino, you have two taps all going to one cup. And then during El Nino also, we have also plus positive Indian Ocean Dipole. So there are three cups. So we have normal cup, which is filling slowly. But during El Nino, there are two taps turned on. We talked about Congo Basin, and then we also have Indian Ocean Dipole. So there are now three taps turned on. So this cup is going to overflow, and that's what we find. So the overflow is an analogy of the flooding, which happens when the rainfall is intense, when all these three sources they converge into Kenya. So El Nino does not magically create the rain. It does not also target Kenya. We said that atmosphere doesn't have borders. So it simply moves the air, the heat. And then the heat moves the air, because the hot air rises and all that. Air moves also moisture, and rain is just the result. So that's how it happens. So it's not that El Nino is magically, it creates rain magically. What it does is it's just moving the heat, and then the heat moving the air, and then the air moving the moisture, and rain happens. So Kenya's rainfall is shaped by oceans thousands of kilometers away, very far away. We talked about the rope. You are pulling a rope on one side, it will be felt on kilometers away. So when oceans change the temperature, the atmosphere also responds. So when the atmosphere responds, rain belts move, and Kenya ends up standing under heavy clouds. Remember, we were talking about South America, very far from Kenya, but because of the trade winds or the winds, they are affecting because of the change in heat, and then change also in the air, and also the air moisture, which is being moved by the winds. So the chain looks like this. So Pacific is warming near Peru. So you have Pacific Ocean warming near Peru. Atmospheric circulation shifts. Indian Ocean warms near East Africa. We know where Indian Ocean is. It's also next to East Africa, where Kenya is. And then Congo moisture gets pulled east. Congo is in the west of Kenya. So when it pushes towards east, it is pushing the wind. The moisture is being pushed towards east, where Kenya is. So we have rainfall over Kenya because of that. So normally it's just that simple. Three sources of moisture, and they converge into Kenya, and that's when we have El Nino, especially when it is very intense. Remember, we had that analogy of a cup. When you open one tap, the water may not, it fills the cup slowly. If you open two taps at the same time, it becomes quicker. But when there are three, then it even overflows, and that's when you usually have flooding. So normally it's just physics. It's no mystery. Until next time, bye.